Today, we are talking about how to solidify your ideas for a presentation. Let's think about that for a second. How in the world do we get our ideas out of our head and onto paper? Now, I don't know about you, but for me, when I'm trying to get my ideas out of my head and onto paper, it is so hard, right? So I sit there and I'm typing and I have to correct this, and it's so difficult to get the ideas out of my head fast enough. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm just going nuts, right? So I'm not a fast typer. I'm not, some of these guys are freaking ridiculous with how fast they go. Like, that's not me. And if it's not you, there's a simpler way, a little bit easier. Number one, we all have our phones, right? We've got something on our phone, an audio recording device. Maybe it's our voice memos. Pull that thing out and riff. Riff on your topic, riff on your ideas, get it all out. I'll do this when I'm driving. I'll do this when I'm alone, when I go for a walk. I just riff into my phone and I'll get all the ideas out of my head and into my phone around the topic of the presentation that I'm about to give, right? I want to make sure that whatever that I'm typing up or writing, that I get my ideas in one place, and then I'll transcribe them. So step number one is riff on it. Step number two is transcribe it. So now we take it and we have it transcribed. And there's transcription services out there that'll do it for you, where they'll literally just, for pennies on the dollar, will transcribe the whole thing, and then you can just print it out. Basic math, right? It's pretty simple. Once you have it on paper, once you've got it in document form, now we can go through and edit, right? At this point, we can go through three. But before we get to step number three, for those of you who don't know me, my name is David Adams. And again, I'm doing this simply because my purpose is to inspire leaders to embrace people's stewardship so that their teams will have personal responsibility for their own growth and development. And how do we do that? Through effective communication. That's how we do it. That's how we start. We've got to communicate effectively in order to make that happen, which means we've got to connect with our teams, connect in many ways. That way we can do it. And one way we can do that is through verbal communication, either one-to-one or one-to-many. All right, moving on. Step number three. Now we review our story file. And again, for those of you who don't know what a story file is, that's the file that you put on the desktop of your computer where you constantly are entering your stories, right? Go back to a video we did yesterday. It talks about creating your story file, right? And where we come up with stories to put in the story file. But anyway, so you go back to your story file and you review all your stories and you select the stories that represent or that will best make the points that you're trying to make during your presentation. Now, you may have thought of these stories while you were riffing, or it's very possible that you did not. And that's why we go back and review the story file. And we're like, oh my goodness, I can use this one and I can use this one and I can use this one. And then we add those into the presentation. Now we edit the heck of that thing until we have our finished version of our presentation, right? Obviously, there's way more steps to creating a presentation than that, but we want to get our ideas on paper as quickly as possible. And don't get me wrong, if you're fantastic and you're a great typist and you could just rock with it, then do what works best for you. For me, being as ADD as I am, man, I've got to riff on it. Otherwise, forget it. I grew up a dyslexic, so for me, it's significantly more difficult to type. All right. Anyways, I hope you got some value out of this. If you did, like it, subscribe it, share it with somebody who needs it, and we will talk to you very soon. Because remember, when it comes to leadership, all leadership starts with personal. And if we get personal leadership down,